I hadn't seen Emma in 5 days, and the silence in the house had been unusually loud without her. So when she texted me that her plane had landed early, I dropped everything and drove straight to the airport. I even waited near the baggage claim like the kind of guy who still believes in airport reunions, hoping for one of those warm movie-style hugs. Instead, what I got was something quieter, measured. She walked out of the gate doors like she wasn't coming from a business trip, but a spa. Her skin had that sun-kissed glow. Not the kind you get running between hotel conference rooms and company mixers, but the kind that comes from time spent in natural light. Real light. Her hair had a soft wave to it, like it had been air-dried after a swim, and she wore a loose linen blouse that still had the faint smell of citrus. Her smile was wide, practiced, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in a while. Too relaxed. "Hey, stranger," she said, slipping her arm through mine and leaning in for a kiss. It landed somewhere between affectionate and obligatory. "Hey," I replied, trying not to stare. "Retreat go okay?" She nodded. "Amazing, actually. Tiring but good. I think we all needed the reset." Her suitcase was lighter than I expected when I grabbed it, and I noticed she wasn't carrying her usual laptop bag. Just a leather tote that looked more appropriate for a weekend in Napa than for a corporate workshop. I rolled the suitcase toward the parking garage, trying to keep conversation casual. "I thought it rained the whole week in Portland?" I asked. She blinked, like I'd pulled her out of a daydream. "Huh. You look like you've been in the sun," I said with a half smile. Not complaining, just surprised. She laughed, but it came out flat. "Oh yeah, the weather actually cleared up midweek. We did some outdoor mindfulness sessions and trail walks. I guess it just caught me." It didn't sound like a lie. Not quite. But it also didn't sound like the whole truth. I opened the back of the car and tossed her suitcase in, still chewing on her tone. It wasn't until we were on the freeway that I saw the ping. I had her phone in the cup holder. She tossed it there absent-mindedly when she got in the car, the way she usually does when she's distracted. The screen lit up with a soft buzz, one of those default cloud alerts from our shared location service. We mostly used it for convenience. She'd lost her phone in a coffee shop once, and I'd used the app to track it down. And ever since then, it had just stayed on. The alert was simple. A fresh location pin. Saved location from photo metadata chalet balcony, Flathead County, MT. I felt something in my stomach shift. "Montana?" "Hey," I said, keeping my voice even. "Did you take any pictures on this trip?" Emma was leaning her head against the window, scrolling through her texts. She looked over, startled. Yeah. Why?" I held up the phone. "It just dropped a pin. Says it saved your location from a photo. You ever been to Montana?" She leaned over to glance at the screen, and for a split second, I saw something flicker in her face. Not panic, just calculation. "Oh, no. That's gotta be a glitch. I think one of the girls uploaded a group photo from like a trip someone took last year or something. Probably auto-tagged from that. These apps are so weird sometimes." She reached for the phone, laughing it off, and swiped the notification away. Her fingers moved quickly. Too quickly. Then she handed the phone back like it hadn't happened. I didn't say anything. I was trying to decide if I believed her. "You're sure?" I asked. "Because the pin says Flathead County, and I thought you guys were in Portland?" "We were," she said firmly. "That's what I'm saying. Must have gotten mixed up. Maybe the photo wasn't even mine." I glanced at her. There was a guy in the picture too. I only saw part of a hand. Didn't look like anyone from your team. She smirked, which annoyed me more than it should have. "Are you seriously zooming in on thumbnails now?" I wasn't trying to, it just popped up. She sighed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. The exact motion I'd seen her make every time she was about to lie in a white-collar way. Polished, minimal, harmless on the surface. "Look," she said. "There was this safety instructor at the retreat. He was around during one of the group hikes. Maybe it's his hand. I don't know. You're way overthinking this." I didn't answer right away. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe she was right. But it wasn't just the pin. It wasn't just the photo. It was her. The way her voice got tighter the more she explained. The way she hadn't asked what the pin actually showed. She already knew. Just seems weird, I said finally. That's all. She tilted her head and gave me that look. The one she used when we first started dating and I got awkward about something. She reached across the center console and took my hand, her fingers warm and steady. Can we not do this the second I get back? She said softly. Please? I've missed you. I don't want to spend the whole drive dissecting metadata. And just like that, I let it drop. Because I wanted to believe her. Because we'd been in a good place, or at least I thought we had. And because even when doubt starts whispering in your ear, part of you clings to the story you want to be true. We got home around 8. She unpacked quickly, moving through the room like someone checking tasks off a list. Her stories came easily, a bit too easily. We did a vision board exercise, she said at dinner, sipping white wine. The facilitator made us close our eyes and imagine our future selves. She laughed. I felt so ridiculous, but I actually kind of liked it. I smiled and nodded and asked about the group, how many people were there, who she roomed with, if anyone I'd heard her mention was also on the trip. She answered everything, confidently, smoothly, but always just a little vague. Like she had rehearsed versions of the answers in her head and just needed to plug them into the blanks. Later that night, I stepped outside to take the trash out. As I came back in, I caught her through the window, sitting on the couch, head bowed, staring at her phone. Her thumb hovered over something for a long time before she finally locked the screen and set it down face down on the cushion. When I came in, she jumped slightly. You okay? I asked. Yeah, just tired. And she leaned in for a kiss again, softer this time, reassuring, intentional. But her calmness wasn't calm. It was precision, like someone carefully keeping a tower of playing cards from falling. And I realized then, it wasn't the photo or the app or the lie that shook me the most. It was how easy she made it all sound. As if truth was just another version she hadn't gotten around to yet. I didn't confront her that night, or the next day. Emma moved around the house like nothing had happened. Folding laundry, organizing the fridge, humming under her breath like she always did when she was nesting. The kind of behavior that says, see, everything's fine. And for a while I let her have that space. Not because I believed her, but because I needed time to think. Because something had shifted. Subtly, yes, but undeniably. That photo tag at the chalet had lit up a trail I hadn't even realized I'd been walking. Breadcrumb by breadcrumb, moment by moment, all the way back through the last several months. I started retracing it without even trying. And what I found made the ground under me feel less and less solid. Started with her phone. Not the day I saw the Montana pin, but months earlier, when she began turning off her location services completely at night. At first, I assumed it was an app glitch or a battery saver setting. She brushed it off. Work's been weird about privacy lately, she'd said. They're cracking down on data sharing. Sounded plausible. I didn't ask twice. Then there were the do not disturb weekends. Entire Saturdays and Sundays where her notifications would suddenly vanish, even though her screen would still light up every few minutes. I remember sitting beside her once on the couch while she scrolled through something, and I casually said, "Didn't your phone buzz?" She'd smiled, tapped the screen to show me a blank notification panel, and said, "Phantom vibration. Weird, right?" Felt like gaslighting in slow motion. I believed her because I wanted to, because the alternative meant opening a door I wasn't ready to walk through. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, but my memory began pulling together fragments like puzzle pieces, some jagged, some smoothed by time, like the trip to Philadelphia back in March. She was gone for 4 days, said she had a medical conference to attend with her team. When she came back, she mentioned misplacing her fitness tracker. It was a small thing, but I remember thinking it was odd. She was religious about tracking her sleep and workouts, but she never replaced it. Just kind of shrugged it off like she was glad to be free of it. Then there were the hotel charges. Emma never used to book her own travel. Her company handled everything through a centralized booking platform. But around early summer, I saw a few out-of-pocket reimbursements on our shared card spa services. Meal tabs that exceeded per diem, upgrades to private rooms. "We had some flexibility this time," she said when I asked. "The budget wasn't as strict." I didn't push. Why would I? I didn't want to be that guy, the one who interrogates his wife over a facial or a room upgrade. Besides, I trusted her. Or I used to. Now it all looked different, rewritten under a harsher light. I remembered how she'd started clearing her browser history every night. At first, I thought she was just being cautious. Maybe browsing hotels for a surprise trip or planning something special. But then it became routine. Every evening, after dinner, she'd log off, wipe her tabs, and close her laptop like she was erasing a part of the day she didn't want me to see. And then there was that stupid joke from one of her coworkers at the last barbecue. I hadn't thought about it until now. We were talking about winter travel, and her coworker, some guy from marketing, had laughed and said, "Emma looked great with someone in ski goggles." I still can't believe that guy actually kept up with her on the slopes. I remember Emma freezing for just a beat too long. She smiled, waved it off. "He's talking about a team-building exercise," she said quickly. It was months ago. Then she nudged the guy's arm and added, "Someone needs to stop drinking." It hadn't registered then. I thought he was just drunk and joking. But now I wondered who was that guy, and when exactly had she been skiing? Because I never saw any photos, and Emma never mentioned a single slope. Suddenly, I was looking at every moment with new eyes. Even how intensely she prepared for this latest retreat. She spent hours shopping online, new swimsuits, expensive skincare products, and an unusual number of beachy outfits for a trip that was supposedly about PowerPoints and team strategy. "They're doing these wellness workshops," she'd explained. "Hot springs, sauna circuits, a bit of yoga. It's all very corporate enlightenment now." Back then, I laughed and told her she'd probably come back more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. Now I realized that might have been the plan. It was around midnight when I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, just staring. My mind felt like it was buffering, replaying fragments of conversations, moments I'd dismissed, feelings I'd swallowed down. My fingers hovered over the keys as I tried to figure out what I was even looking for. Not proof, not yet, but a shape. Something that told me whether I was imagining things, or if the life I thought I had was already being lived by someone else. I opened our cloud backup. We'd set it up years ago. Just a simple shared archive that synced photos and documents from both of our phones. Emma always said it made things easier when we traveled. I hadn't looked at it in months, maybe longer. Most of the folders were locked to default permissions. Hers, mine, shared. But there was one labeled Retreat 23, buried under a nested sync folder. I clicked on it. It was empty, but something didn't add up. The folder had a last modified timestamp from 3 days ago, in the middle of her trip, and it showed 14 items removed, deleted. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I opened the backup settings and navigated to the system archive, a hidden part of the cloud that stored recently purged data for up to 7 days. I didn't open the photos. Not yet. I wasn't ready. Instead, I leaned back in my chair and stared out the window, where the reflection of the house danced softly on the glass. A house I had built with her. A house I had believed was ours. But now, it felt like a story I'd been reading without realizing someone else had started writing their own chapters behind my back. The pieces were all there. I just never looked at them all at once before. Nighttime shutoffs. Deleted files. A balcony that didn't exist on any Portland hotel. A man's hand on a railing. Jokes that stopped being funny when you finally understood the context. I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just this dull, heavy realization that I'd already passed the point of pretending not to see what was right in front of me. I closed the laptop gently, like I didn't want to wake the version of me that still thought everything could be explained away. Then I turned out the kitchen light and went to bed. I didn't open the photo right away. I knew it was there, the one that had tripped the cloud's metadata system and left behind a ghost pin in Montana. I saw the file name in the archive. IMG_4765. JPG. Timestamps matched the retreat week. Size 3. 2 megabytes. Format, original resolution. No tags, no filters. RAW. I told myself I needed to be clear-headed when I saw it. Not tired. Not angry. Not 2 glasses of wine in. So I waited until morning. I woke up early, sat on the edge of the bed while Emma was still asleep across the hall in our guest room. She claimed it was for the better sleep she got their post-retreat, and opened the photo with my phone screen turned away from her door. There was no doubt left after that. No more breadcrumbs, no more puzzle pieces. It was all there, vivid and sharp, like the moment had only just happened. Emma, my wife, lying back in a woven hammock strung between 2 thick wooden beams, toes pointed lazily toward a stone terrace. Her legs were bare. A cocktail glass rested in one hand, the rim kissed with condensation. Her other hand was stretched across a man's chest, flat, familiar, almost casual. Her fingertips curved ever so slightly against his skin, and it wasn't the way you touch a coworker. It was the way you touch someone you've already decided to let in. The man was shirtless, tanned, muscular, but in a subtle way. He was half sitting, half leaning into her, like he'd just climbed into the hammock beside her and hadn't left since. His expression was relaxed, confident. His eyes weren't visible, but his posture said everything. It was Blake Harper. Blake, the junior manager she once mentioned in passing twice, during dinner almost a year ago, when he'd apparently done something impressive in a strategy module and she had defended his approach to creative problem-solving. I remember teasing her. "Sounds like someone has a fan," I said. She rolled her eyes. "He's just one of those guys who gets underestimated a lot," she replied. "But he's harmless, right?" Now he was in a hammock with her, under a sun that had clearly warmed them both for days, and not a single other coworker in sight. No whiteboards, no binders, no conference calls, just her, and him, and a place she swore she'd never been. I zoomed in slowly, not because I needed to, but because my brain couldn't help it. I studied every detail. Her ankle tucked behind his thigh, the outline of her swimsuit strap slipping below the collar of her dress. The faint pink mark on his shoulder where, maybe minutes before, her lips had been. In the corner of the image, the balcony's railing curved out into the mountain view. The same curve from the thumbnail in the app. Same angle. Same planters. Same pair of lounge chairs, only now slightly askew. Like they'd been moved around during the afternoon. That was the pin. That was the place. "The glitch," she said. I looked at the timestamp again. It was taken on the 4th day of the retreat. Not at night, not indoors. Right in the middle of the day. Bright sun. Clear sky. No one hiding. No one looking over their shoulder. They weren't trying to be discreet. They weren't worried about getting caught. Because in that moment, they didn't think anyone was watching. I didn't know how long I stared at it. Minutes, maybe longer. There was no adrenaline. No cinematic rage. Just this cold, slow realization that the last thread of doubt I'd been clinging to had snapped. So gently I barely felt it. I saved the photo twice. Once on my phone. Once in an encrypted folder on a private drive she didn't know I still used. Then I went downstairs and made coffee like it was any other Tuesday. She joined me an hour later. Hair pulled back. Cozy sweatshirt. No makeup. "Slept like a rock," she said, pouring her own cup. "That guest bed is comfier than I remembered." I nodded. "That's good." She smiled. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "Work stuff." She accepted it. Easily. Too easily. Later that afternoon, I pulled out an old binder from my office closet. One I hadn't touched in years. It still had my initials printed on the spine, from when I used to work with sensitive data for the agency. Back before I moved into more boring, safe jobs. Inside were color-coded dividers. Notes. Reference material. Encryption keys. My archive habits hadn't started recently. I'd always kept a record of the things I didn't want to forget, or couldn't afford to. That's when I started wondering, who exactly was Blake Harper? Because I remembered his name. But not just from Emma. No, it showed up once before. 3 years ago. A report I'd only glanced at briefly, while helping audit some flagged documents for a former employer who did contract work with the federal labs. There was a footnote in one of the redacted summaries. B.H. referred to multiple times as someone who had triggered a breach protocol after failing to report an off-site exposure during a biotech simulation. That name stuck with me. Blake Harper. I thought it was a coincidence. But I never forget names, especially not ones buried under layers of bureaucratic language and sealed settlements. I fired up my old login to the case index and ran a few quiet queries. He was there. Same name, same date of birth, same early removal from the lab team, followed by reassignment to a private sector consulting firm, with zero public disclosures. The file didn't go into much detail, but the summary made one thing clear. He was blacklisted from sensitive research, reassigned to training and development programs after a controlled personnel dispute. The kind of sentence that screams settlement without ever saying it. So what was he doing on a company retreat in a chalet in Montana? Lying shirtless next to my wife? I scrolled through the backup folder again. Only one photo had been auto-tagged, but metadata showed others had existed, different thumbnails now erased. I couldn't access them, but they'd been there. Their traces still lingered in the file logs. I was holding only one truth, but it was enough. It wasn't the suspicion anymore. It wasn't the puzzle pieces or the trail. This was the moment the abstract became physical. The whisper became a voice. The balcony, the hand, the hammock, her face, and the unmistakable way her body curved toward him. As if she'd done it before. As if she'd do it again. After seeing the hammock photo, something in me switched. Not rage, not devastation. Just a clarity that bordered on unsettling. My mind went quiet, almost clinical, the way it used to during long nights sorting through incident logs at my old job. When the personal becomes undeniable, you stop negotiating with it. You start gathering facts. Emma went to brunch with a friend the next morning, or so she claimed. Leaving the house with a breezy kiss and that same inexplicable glow she'd been carrying since Montana. I watched her drive away, and as soon as her car rounded the corner, I walked upstairs to her office. She almost never shut the door fully, especially not when she left. But today, it clicked behind her with a softness that felt intentional. A habit she wasn't used to having, but one she was learning. I stood there for a moment, one hand hovering over the doorknob. This wasn't who I wanted to be. A man creeping behind his wife's curated life, following clues like cracked breadcrumbs. But she'd already crossed that line. I was just walking the path she'd carved. Inside, her laptop sat open on the desk. The screen was dark, but the open lid meant the system hadn't locked yet. I tapped the spacebar. Her desktop lit up instantly. I didn't go looking for messages, not yet. I navigated directly to the synced cloud folder, the one she didn't know I had admin oversight on, thanks to a shared account from years ago when we digitized our documents. She'd forgotten it existed. The same Retreat 23 folder showed up. Still empty, still freshly modified. But now I knew to check the local sync logs. Sure enough, 23 deletions. Timestamp, 2:14 p.m. The exact time she'd been in an afternoon workshop. I clicked through the logs anyway. A few low-res thumbnails still lingered in the metadata, just silhouettes and blurs, but enough for context. One caught my eye immediately. A patio table set with 2 glasses, one still half full. Another showed the outline of a man's legs stretched out beside hers. And one, the most telling, was taken indoors, a fireplace visible, with what looked like 2 bathrobes hanging on adjacent hooks. The final nail wasn't just the hammock photo. It was the pattern. A pattern they'd relied on staying hidden. I backed out slowly, careful not to disturb anything. I wasn't ready for confrontation yet. Not when I still had one piece of the puzzle missing, the one involving Blake Harper. For 2 days I dug. Not emotionally. Not dramatically. Meticulously. I logged into an old secure drive I hadn't touched since leaving my prior job. The one with archived regulatory reports, safety incident summaries, and the kinds of documents most civilians never see unless something goes catastrophically wrong. Accessing it wasn't illegal, I still had legacy permissions, but it wasn't something I ever expected to revisit. I searched Harper, Blake. The first hit was a personnel summary. Subject, Harper, Blake R. Incident type: protocol violation, Tier 3. Details: failure to report off-site exposure to experimental biological material. That alone made me pause. Off-site exposures weren't casual mistakes. They triggered immediate reporting. Failure to disclose could put entire labs at risk. I kept reading. Secondary outcomes: 3 confirmed exposures among staff. 1 unconfirmed case. Subject left program. Mandatory settlement reached. NDA enforced. Subject reassigned to private consultancy. That detail struck me. He didn't just get reassigned. He got removed quietly without legal fallout, which only happens when someone knows enough to negotiate their way out of consequences. Then I saw a name I recognized. Emma's company. She had no idea, or maybe she did, that her own corporate training division contracted with Harper's consulting firm for wellness modules, leadership intensives, and innovative resilience programs, whatever that meant. I dug deeper. The more I read, the more uncomfortable I became. Harper had disappeared from any research-adjacent work after the settlement. But in the last 18 months, he'd appeared in a series of internal consulting rosters, including the one that matched Emma's retreat. So he wasn't random. He wasn't coincidental. He had been placed there, and Emma had been with him. I don't know why this struck such a deep nerve. It wasn't the infidelity itself. It was the realization that this man, this stranger threaded through our life without my knowing, had already been connected to something dangerous long before he ever touched her. That's when the real twist arrived. Not from documentation, but from a detail in the hammock photo I hadn't noticed at first. I reopened it, zooming in further than before. On Blake's chest, just below the collarbone, was a faint scar, a pale crescent shape. I recognized it instantly. I'd seen the mark in the photos attached to his old protocol violation report. A biopsy excision from the incident site. A scar from a violation that had forced an entire lab into quarantine. In the hammock photo, Emma's hand rested directly on it. My stomach turned. Not out of jealousy, not out of heartbreak, out of something colder, dread. She had no idea. Or maybe she did and simply never bothered to ask. Either way, she'd brought this man into her orbit, into her life, into her physical space. And she'd lied to me not only about the nature of their relationship, but about where she had been, who she had been with, what risks she had willingly walked into without a second thought. And if she had lied about Montana, about Blake, about the retreat, what else did she lie about? I leaned back in my chair, closing the laptop slowly, as if any sudden motion might cause the truth to spill out in a way I wasn't ready for. Because now, this wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a level of concealment most people never stumble into unless they're already in too deep. And Emma? She jumped headfirst. That afternoon, I printed the hammock photo. Not big, just a clean, small, 4x6 print. Evidence. Not for a courtroom, not for revenge, but for clarity. For the moment she'd have to look at it and confront what she'd tried so hard to bury. When Emma finally came home, she chatted casually about her friend and their brunch. Placing her phone face down on the counter like always, she kissed my cheek as she passed behind me. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I knew something she didn't know I knew. And that knowledge changed everything. I wasn't confronting her yet. Not until the evidence was complete. Not until I understood the full scope of what she'd brought into our life. Because if part of her betrayal was personal, another part of it was something else entirely. Something she couldn't erase. The strange thing about betrayal is how mundane everything looks after it. The dishwasher still hums. The dog still naps under the table. The door still creaks in the same spot when you open it too quickly. Life doesn't pause for the fallout. And neither did Emma. She moved around the house like everything was normal, as if the last week hadn't happened. As if the person she'd been in Montana, on that balcony, in that hammock, under that sun, didn't still exist in high definition on a printed photo sitting quietly in my desk drawer. Her confidence was unsettling. I'd expected her to come home more guarded, maybe anxious or overcompensating. But instead, she radiated control. She wore cozy sweaters, made fresh juice, lit candles in the evening like she always did. She even left post-it notes on the bathroom mirror again, like it was 2021 and we were still reconnecting. Little messages like, teamwork equals coffee and clean socks, or smile today, you're loved. If I didn't know what I knew, I would have called it sweet. Now it just felt like camouflage. She told me stories from the retreat with well-rehearsed ease, about leadership modules, vision sessions, and a local expert who taught them about mountain herbs and guided mindfulness. She mentioned colleagues by first name only, carefully avoiding specifics like the setting itself might get too real if she went into detail. And every time I asked to follow up, not accusing, just curious, she had a ready answer. Not too fast, not too slow, measured, scripted. I didn't challenge her. Not yet. I was still studying her rhythm, her new rhythm. The version of Emma that had returned from Montana wasn't frantic or defensive. She was calculated, like someone who believed they'd already gotten away with something and had no intention of giving it back. But that kind of confidence only lasts if the illusion holds. And mine was gone. I waited until Thursday night to finally break the pattern. We were having dinner at the kitchen table. I'd made salmon, roasted asparagus, and one of those overpriced bakery loaves she loved, the kind with rosemary baked into the crust. She complimented it, sipped her wine, and started into another retreat anecdote. There was this guy who forgot to pack sunscreen, she said with a little laugh, twirling her fork. He came back from the nature hike with these terrible lines across his face. Looked like ski goggles, honestly. We were all teasing him by the end of the day. I paused, set my fork down. That detail goggles, it snapped the puzzle into place. The joke from her coworker, the sunburn, the lodge balcony, the tan that didn't match Portland. It all circled back to one person, Blake. I stood, walked quietly into my office, and returned with the photo. Just the one. The hammock sh*T. The original print. I didn't say anything, just placed it next to her plate. Emma looked at it slowly, the way someone might turn to glance at a noise they'd been trying to ignore. When her eyes landed on the image, I saw it. The flicker, the fear. Her mask cracked, just for a second. Not shattered, but fractured in a way that couldn't be undone. She didn't touch the photo, didn't move. I watched her, waited. She finally cleared her throat, her voice low. Where did you get that? I tilted my head. From the archive. The cloud service you said glitched. She looked back at the image. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wine glass, but she steadied it fast. I told you. That was probably uploaded by mistake. Maybe someone else took it. I stared at her. Emma. She blinked. Don't lie, I said quietly. Not anymore. She didn't respond. You said there was no balcony, that the app misfired, that the photo wasn't yours. And now I'm looking at the exact location your phone pinned. Same day, same metadata. Same man. Same moment. So I'm asking you one last time. Not about the retreat or the weather or the modules. I'm asking about that balcony. She set the wine down finally. Her eyes darted to the photo again, then to me, then away. Then she looked back and said nothing. And in that silence, something between us gave out, like a thread snapping. I waited, counted the seconds. 10, 20. Still nothing. I see, I said finally, and I got up, took my plate to the sink, ran the water. Behind me she stayed perfectly still. The silence between us was louder than any accusation. It said more than yelling ever could. She knew the photo couldn't be explained. She knew I wouldn't be fooled by the safety instructor story anymore. And she knew the look on her face in that photo wasn't one you wear for a casual coworker. It was int** Macy. It was history. It was intent. After a minute she stood up too, cleared her plate, moved slowly, like the room itself had shifted. She paused behind me, waiting for something, maybe another question, maybe a fight. But I didn't give her one, because I didn't need answers anymore. I already had them. That night, she stayed in the guest room again. I could hear her pacing around after midnight, opening drawers, sitting, standing, walking. I imagined her mind racing, trying to recalibrate. trying to come up with a version of the truth she could still control. But it was too late. The photo had done what words never could. It had ended the story she was still trying to tell. The next morning, we moved around the kitchen like ghosts. I poured coffee. She buttered toast. We didn't look at each other. She said something about needing to go into the office early. I said okay without looking up. And when she left, car keys jingling, door shutting behind her, I opened my laptop and prepared the documents I never thought I'd need, because what she brought back from that retreat wasn't just a tan. It was the final, undeniable confirmation that the version of our life she'd been performing was over. And the real one, the one I hadn't asked for, had already begged *N. While Emma scrambled to regain control, I acted quietly. Our prenup had a clause: in cases of proven infidelity, the estate could be restructured without divorce. I executed the change 3 days before she got back. When she visited a lawyer, thinking she could reverse it, she was told everything had already been notarized. Legally binding. Breach didn't just mean *X. It meant intent, concealment, and misconduct. Location tags, deleted photos, fraudulent travel info, all of it counted. She walked out of that office not crying, but stunned. For the first time, she realized the story wasn't hers to spin anymore. The foundation she thought was permanent had shifted under her feet. And now, no matter how calm she looked, she understood that everything she'd once counted on, the house, the safety, the role she played, had already been taken from her. Quietly, cleanly, by her own choices. 2 weeks later, Emma barely spoke. She drifted around the house like someone hoping a door might reopen. I hosted friends for dinner. She wasn't invited, but I saw her parked outside, watching. Mid-meal, a courier arrived, a sealed envelope. Inside, my medical results. Negative for all flagged risks. I placed it on the table, open. Emma saw. Hers, submitted earlier, were still in review. I stepped onto the porch when she approached. She said nothing. I didn't raise my voice. Just told her calmly, "Next time you lie about where you've been, make sure you know what you're bringing back." She froze, then turned, walked into the dark. She knew there was nowhere left to return. No more versions to edit. Only consequences. I didn't feel anger or triumph, just release.